smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke.
This podcast is brought to you by the Kansas City BBQ Store, the official provider of barbecue supplies to listeners of Pitmaster. And you don't want to miss out on this discount from the Kansas City BBQ Store. From smokers and fuel to rubs and sauces, the Kansas City BBQ Store has everything and anything you could possibly want. Make the Kansas City BBQ Store your one-stop shop for all your outdoor cooking needs. As a listener of the OVS Pitmaster podcast, you can get 10% off of your order this spring by using the code PITPOD, P-I-T-P-O-D, all caps, for online orders at www.thekansascitybarbecuestore.com. Welcome to another edition of Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. My name is Luke Darnell, and I am here with someone I just recently met a couple weeks ago at Memphis in May. I am here with Erin, also known as the BBQ Duchess with Ubon.
Yeah.
How are you?
I am good. How are you, Luke?
I'm good. I'm still recovering from Memphis.
Yeah, I feel that so hard. We were just discussing Memphis in May is like the Mardi Gras of barbecue, and it starts on a Wednesday and goes all the way to a Saturday. And then a few days later, Ubon was headed off to Denver for the Denver Barbecue Fest. So I was up very early yesterday morning, heading back to Mississippi, and I am really proud that my voice is actually working.
I don't know. I was supposed to go out to the Q Fest myself, and I'm not quite sure how you guys did it. It would have destroyed me doing that on back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt being 30-ish, and it also doesn't hurt having libations and lots of sunscreen.
There you go. There you go. This was my first experience of Memphis in May.
And wow. I didn't realize that.
I absolutely had a tremendous time. It was an interesting competition. Of course, we had all the interesting stuff going on with the Food Network and Chef Simon and all of that. So that was an added level of complexity.
A little extra.
Yeah. But you guys finished 10th place, I believe?
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
This is the 5th year in a row, and I want to knock on everything wood. The 5th year in a row that the next generation of barbecue has cooked a whole hog at Memphis in May and received top 10. So I'm feeling very, very jazzed about that. And I could not be happier. I do know after Memphis, I legitimately could not speak. There was no tones at all coming out of my voice.
And you guys also had a great time.
We did. Yeah. It's Memphis is always a really, really wonderful time in the world of barbecue. Really, it's a family reunion, if you will. A lot of us only see each other once a year, and it's always at this event. And I think it's we bond so much because we're crazy enough to do this wild world of barbecue that just destroys your body. And it's not necessarily the biggest money maker in the world, but hell, we always say we win if we break even. But it's really, really fun. And growing up in it, I started, I think when I was 4, following along. And I'm now 31, and just growing up in this, it's very, I don't know, it's a very peculiar and very different world, and not a whole lot of people understand it. But that's why Memphis is just so wonderful, because it's open to the public, and some people can kind of gauge how this world works. Mm-hmm.
Now, I will tell you, and I didn't prep you for this, but I think I brought you, I can't remember if I brought you the duck belly, or the duck taco, the duck bao bun. But I happened into your tent and saw that you were, I believe, cooking with some celebrity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, again, you never know what's going on. So barbecue is a wild one. So we had Deandra, who is a Real Housewife of Dallas, and she met Leslie Roark, who is who owns Ubon's. They met at the Houston rodeo. And Deandra was is very curious about barbecue and is really, really drawn to women in barbecue. And so it was a natural fit that she would come and hang out with us at Memphis in May, as we are a very strong female-led team, very vocal about that and very successful. And one really cool aspect of Memphis style barbecue, all the pitmasters have zero secrets. We don't care. We want more people to join this circus. And so we're always open to sharing secrets and all that. And Deandra was very drawn to that. So she and I hung out a good bit of the weekend. We went over to Carrie Brinkle's wife's tent, Delania's tent, and had a few Jello shots throughout the weekend. It was just great. It was wonderful.
I saw you a bunch of times during the weekend, and I didn't see you one time without a smile on your face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely the life of the party.
It's hard to be mad, man. It's hard to be mad. And it's just so fun. And, I mean, it's exhausting work. So if you aren't having fun doing it, then why are you there? Like, are there going to be times of frustration, but just let it roll off. You're going to be fine.
It's great. I walked in and I didn't come in at first because I just watched you having this housewife. She was arm deep in that hog, and she was just getting it done, and you were cheering her on. I'm like,
absolutely.
This is one of the coolest fly on the wall moments I've had in barbecue. I was like, this is so good. But all that being said, and the way that you were instructing her and the way that you conducted yourself throughout the weekend, from my observations, that you have a tremendous confidence in what you're doing. Where does that confidence come from?
Well, thank you so much. That's very touching. So as I mentioned before, my family, my dad joined Ubon's in 1996, and I was 4 years old. And at that time, we were a predominantly competition team. And so we traveled on the Memphis barbecue circuit, probably did 2 competitions a month, probably 6 to 8 months out of the year. And we gained a name for ourselves, I guess. So barbecue festivals became very popular. Danny Meyer started this festival in New York called the Big Apple Block Party, or Barbecue Block Party. And that was around 15 or 16 years ago. And we were fortunately one of the chosen teams to go. And I think that was because we are considered a Mississippi ambassador of barbecue. So at a very early age, I was given a lot of responsibility alongside my sister. We were the OG barbecue kids. And we had to learn how to talk. We had to learn how to conduct ourselves. And if we just sat around and did nothing, we would not be invited back. So there was a lot of responsibility given to us the older we got. And so growing up, the taller we got, the more responsibilities we got. And I am 5'10", so I have a lot of responsibilities. But essentially, we started getting our hands dirty probably around 9-ish. And so I like to say that I have about as much experience as your average pitmaster. I'm just half his age. And probably around the age of 16, I just really started using my voice and started taking over. And my original nickname was BBQ Duchess. And a few years ago, I was dubbed the boss lady of Ubon's, just because I like to motivate people to do the correct thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so grew up doing that, and my bread and butter is whole hog. And it does take a lot of confidence to, one, do it and trust yourself to cook this massive animal for hours and hours at a time. I cook my hogs for 20 hours. And it takes a lot of confidence to convey that you can do it, and allow the next generation, or the first generation, to trust you. And I'm fortunate enough to have a team and have that support system. So confidence has never been lacking in my life. Honestly, if I didn't have it, something would be really wrong. But yeah, I've just been doing it for a really long time, and I've learned that as long as you trust yourself, or at least convey that you trust yourself, others will trust you as well, and then they'll begin to trust themselves. Which is why with Deandra this weekend, she was very curious and had not had the opportunity to just play with a pig. And this is the world championship, and as long as you give the confidence of yourself leading someone doing it, they'll start trusting themselves more, and this legacy of barbecue will continue.
That's an incredible lesson. In terms of being a pit master and being a leader, if you don't have that confidence, then why should your team?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I try and tell that to my teammates all the time. And there are days when I don't have that. But I try not to show that.
Yeah.
Because if I'm doubting what I'm doing, then they're going to doubt what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, somebody's got to. It's fire. Like who the hell knows what's going to go with fire and weather and rain, and sometimes you get people that you're just not going to feel strong that day. Sometimes you get sick. That's life. But you do that fake it till you make it mentality, and eventually your team will learn to trust themselves even when you're not on your 100%.
Absolutely.
And it's barbecue, man. At the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. This
That's
is some
right.
redneck stuff we're doing. Okay.
So, yeah, you were 1996. You were 4.
I was 4. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a sophomore
ride.
in college.
It's a super wild ride. And Leslie's son, who's coming up, Jacob Scott, he's 19 years old and just finished his first year of college. And I'm the age that my dad started cooking barbecue, period.
Wow.
It is super weird. And like John David Wheeler, who helped win Grand Champion this year, he's seen me grow up. Yeah, Ross Capwell, same way. Yeah. It's a wonderful community, and one that people don't know a whole lot about. Whenever you hear pitmaster, you automatically assume a bunch of big dudes with beards, and they're just drinking beer and shooting the shit and just whatever. But there's a really cool environment and ecosystem that goes along with what this is. It's bigger than just a bunch of dudes cooking barbecue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's even we were talking with a bunch of people this weekend, and the OG barbecue community before Gary Roark, who helped start Ubon's, or he was the start of Ubon's with his daughter Leslie. Before him, women were not allowed to get on a trailer. Like, this was a way to get away from the wives, get away from the girlfriends. And a lot of people didn't like him because he let his daughter take the reins. He did that. And it was just a very, very different environment. And the biggest question that we often get is, what was it like growing up as a woman in barbecue? And for Leslie and I, we didn't know it was a big deal. We had no idea because we weren't treated in a way that we were different. I always say the greatest gift my dad ever did was not treat me any differently than my brother. There's nothing that we could not do at all. I mean, hell, we were mandated to do everything. So, yeah, it was just what it was. And now that I'm looking back and realizing the last 25 years of barbecue, how much it has shifted and so much has changed. And the landscape of barbecue is not just a big dude with a beard just shooting the shit and saying, "Hey, y'all, come on down." Like, it's very different. There's this great sense of pride with it too, especially when you get your family involved. That is something that I'm really loving to see, is that multi-generations are happening and multi-generational teams are happening.
And that's the only way that this hobby continues and this way of life continues. And it has come a long way, but I still think that there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that for sure. Yeah.
You hear a lot of mansplaining out there, and that can be challenging to deal with.
Yep. It is, that does happen. I learned that, or I think I recognize it more now. Um, for a living, I do digital marketing. And so, I'm very good at explaining things and like taking back and listening and seeing people's perspectives. That is the ultimate fascination for me, is how people think, and why they think the way that they do. And barbecue has been such a wonderful place of different conversations to happen, but it does take patience to let people get their stereotypes out there, and then find a way to reform their mindset. And a lot of it too, whenever they see a girl of my stature, picking up a pig and all of this, I'm just like, what are you doing? And where is your father? And it's just like, no, we're good. I promise. But, yeah, it's really interesting. And I'm also learning, this is one reason why I really love hogs, is because not a whole lot of people do them. And so when they see me doing it, they come up to me for advice, or how did you start doing this? And it just starts that conversation. If you do something like ribs, which it is difficult, but that is I don't know, 4 to 5 hour process, and it's much more manageable, then that's when you'll start get the mansplaining of like, well, this is what I do. This is what I do. But whenever you have hogs going on, you're automatically put on this pedestal of, oh, this girl knows what she's talking about. I guess she's worthy enough to have this conversation. But it just like an even playing ground, fully. Yeah.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, watching all of the hog cooks in Memphis, man, I learned more about cooking hogs in those 3 days than I've learned in the 25 years that I've done this. Just watching and listening and taking my own advice on this podcast to just sit there and shut the fuck up and listen to what's going on. You know,
yep.
you can get a lot done that way.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part though, because we all like putting our little 2 cents in there.
We do. And we all love
competition. So you got to give everybody a little bit of shit, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We love talking about our successes as well. Mm-hmm. But one of my favorite things to talk about are failures.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite failure of yours during a competition where you really learned something and it sets you up for success later?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we do 3 competitions a year, and the rest of it are festivals, like traveling and feeding people a ton of meat. But one of these 3 festivals that we do a year is our anniversary cook. And it is in Cleveland, Mississippi, called Oktoberfest. It's an old school competition that's been there forever. And it's one of my favorite things. And we always do a pig there, always do a whole hog. We're known for our whole hogs there. And so we decide to, we order a pig, and we get to the butcher, and the pig isn't dead yet. So, but it has been moved to the front of the line. So the morning that we are going to put on a pig, that afternoon we're going to put it on, this pig is alive still. And so that was interesting. So we get the pig harvested, is the nice way to say it. It's bled out for maybe an hour and then put in a cooler and iced down. And so we get to Cleveland and put the pig on the table and start we have a system of breaking its ribs so we can access the cavity, all of that. It is the easiest prep I have ever done in my life because the pig is so loose. And I'm like, oh, hell, well, this might be a way to go. Okay, cool. Inject it, everything, it goes on. Well, my dad and I are typically the overnight crew. And hell, it's slowly becoming me and Jacob. But on this particular overnight crew, we're going through the motions, doing our thing, and typically around 2:00 is when it starts to break down and you start seeing grease. We always cook it running style. To me, that's the proper way to do it. But again, I am a very opinionated person. And so it's not letting go. Not at 2:00, not anything. I'm like, all right. And this is an easy cook. Like there's no rain. It's like 75 degrees all night long. We're good. And so my dad and I are looking at each other like, what is going on? And around 5:00 that morning, we start seeing something start to drip, but it's like red. And that's not normal. And so we are very old school in that we do not look at our pigs the entire night. We don't have probes. We don't have anything. I just know how my smoker is supposed to cook. So we'll open it for the first time around 7 a.m. after putting it on. And we open it and it looks correct, but it's feeling really wrong in that when you feel the shoulder and feel the ham, very wrong. So we flip it around and we just crank the heat. Like, I guess because it died so soon, the fat's just not ready to render. Okay. But we have judging in like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Was it tight? Like, was it still really tight?
Uh-huh. I mean, you couldn't do anything. And so an hour before we do blind box, we expose the loin and the bacon. And so we cut a flap. And I'm starting to press the bacon, and I can't get my finger through the bacon. And that's unheard of. Like,
wow.
For cooking a pig for 19 hours at that point, you can't even get your finger through the bacon. We had to cut bacon. And we thought, holy shit, well, this is bad. And Dad's like, well, screw it. We should just DQ ourselves. And at that particular competition, there's very few hogs. And I was like, no, we're going to get this pig paid for. But I lifted... How I know my pigs are done is I like lift the shank on the shoulder, and if it's let go, I know we've done something right. I lifted the shank and the entire pig lifted with it. It was that firm. And so that was the worst hog I've ever cooked in my life, ever. That was the first time in my life that we threw a pig away after judging. Like we couldn't pull it.
Wow.
And so I learned that you cannot cook a pig that has not been cooled down properly and has not gone through rigor mortis, because the pig that we cooked went through rigor mortis while cooking. And that's what happened. It's like, well, and now we have a running joke whenever we go and pick up pigs. Is the pig dead yet? Because if it ain't, we ain't going. Yeah,
that's
so
a tremendous story.
Make sure your pig is dead at least a day before. It has got to cool down.
That is a great story. What's been the most surprising thing to come out of competition barbecue for you?
Oh man, there's so many. So I would say we have some really, really cool stories with barbecue. My sister, she's also a hog cook and very, very talented, but she is the exact opposite of me. She is very blonde, very pale, but she is 6'1" and like super thin. And when we were up in New York, she was spotted and asked to go to open calls. And so at a barbecue event, she was spotted to become a runway model. And the next week, she was signed and headed to Austria on her first gig. And that was all because of barbecue. We have several members of our team who've been on Chopped. We were followed by Michael Simon last year for his Barbecue USA series. I think it's just wonderful to be, I guess, one of the first-ish women in barbecue. Maybe we aren't the first, but I would say Leslie Roark and Melissa Cookston are the first women in barbecue. And it's and Amy Mills. And it's really, really cool. And we are the next part of that. And so being the continuing legacy of women in barbecue is so cool. It's really awesome. In Denver 2 days ago, our episode of Barbecue USA apparently was just on repeat on normal cable television. And I had about 10 people walk up to me and say, are you the Barbecue Duchess? And I was like, yeah, that's me. And they're like, I can't believe it. We saw you on TV yesterday. And that still floors me, of just being spotted. and known for barbecue, which is something like it is the biggest passion of my life. And I'll go to work so that I can do barbecue. And it's just so awesome. And growing the family that we have, we always say it was family by choice, but we have family all over the nation, all over the world, and people we would have never met because we just started a fire and started cooking pieces of meat on a grill. Like, what is that? It's so cool.
That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great stories. So your sister that's incredible. And she was in Austria the next week. That's so funny.
Yeah. It's nuts. Because of barbecue, we were able to start a Bloody Mary mix company.
Yeah.
We partnered with some guys from New York doing that. Never would have happened if we would not have traveled. We get to go to St. Louis and Denver and Kansas City and Dallas and all these places. And I think one of the coolest things is being able to change the stereotype of what it means to be a Mississippian. Mississippi gets a really bad rap, and we do have a very hard history. And we have a lot of really bad statistics. But there is so much beauty that comes from this state, so much art, so much culture, so much strength that comes from this state. And whenever we travel, we get to change the mindsets of people and change the perspective of what it means to visit the state and what it means to be from this state. And that is overall like truly the coolest thing. It's so nice.
We're going to go tangent here pretty hard because I'm originally from West Virginia.
Oh, yeah. But no.
Right. There we go. Same stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was, so fun fact, 2 weeks ago was my first time ever to Mississippi.
Wow. Yeah.
It was my 47th state that I've been to. And I couldn't help but notice the parallels between there and West Virginia a little bit in terms of socioeconomic things, and but also just how nice everybody was. Especially when I was in southern Mississippi and I went into a Best Buy, like I couldn't understand anybody. But
we do need captions under a few people. Yeah.
But it was just an incredible experience to spend a day there, really, and kind of see what the people were like and see the similarities between that and West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. We are always like, well, thank God for Mississippi. We're not last in this. So.
Yeah, we say that about Arkansas and Alabama. Yeah, the running joke, which is untrue, but it's a funny joke, is that, the difference between Mississippi and Alabama?
What?
Alabama's family tree is a straight line. At least ours have branches.
Oh, my gosh. And Alabamans cannot drive.
Oh, I think no one in any state can drive, at all. Everybody's terrible. Everybody.
I truly hated my trip through Alabama. I was like, this is brutal.
I'm so sorry.
Please make better decisions, guys. Let's do this.
I just want to encourage people to use their blinkers. Just use them. That'd be great.
It's there for a reason.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Wonderful. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But Mississippi and West Virginia and all these places. Yeah, we do have some issues, but there is some really, really great things. And you are correct about the accents. We had several volunteers during our time in Denver to help with expediting and we didn't have point of sale, but handing out. And I always do a big spiel, but I always end it with, we are Southern people. We are drinking. So the more we drink, the harsher our accents get. And you can they're going to tell you stuff and you may not understand it, but you can ask them to repeat that. And that's okay. No one's going to get their feelings hurt if you ask them to repeat it because they love to talk too. So yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit into gear.
Okay.
Let's see. You've had so much experience cooking barbecue your whole life, so this is kind of hard. because you probably had a lot of the infrastructure already available to you. What do you guys cook your hogs on?
So we are we started off, like I said, way long time ago before any sort of deals, any form of relationships. And my uncle, who is a welder by trade, made our first hog cooker out of an old water tank. So it was that with an offside wood box. And that's what I still cook my hogs on today. Whenever I go do caterings, I bring that stoker. She's as old as I am. She's got her quirks, but she's a beast. And then we also, what we did in Memphis was the second iteration of that. My uncle made this, it's called a D&W, a driver and welder special. He built this double-walled, smoker that's very similar to a backwoods, but I call it made for tall people. The door goes all the way up. It's a little bit higher set. And the rack comes out and it's on a swivel. But it's essentially a souped up backwoods, and it's got like a main wood box that's giant underneath, and then a 45-gallon water tank. And then, we've got space for several racks, but we do our right side up hog, or our running style hog. I apologize. On that one. And then for Memphis, we do 2 hogs for the blind box, or 2 hogs in general, but one is for the blind box. And so we did another one on an old hickory, and that one was the upside down. It allows all that bark and beautiful caramelization, and so we can utilize that for that. Whenever we are on the festival circuit, it's all old hickories. They can just crank out food.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that for competition, you don't need the gas. Hell, you can't use it, but I'm an old school girl. If I'm going to cook barbecue for a competition or for my family, I'm not using gas. I think gas grills are communist and a cop-out, so don't use them. That's my dad speaking for me right there. But yeah, I love an old hickory. And backwoods are tried and true. Now, I know that pellet cookers are becoming more and more popular. We have a really good friend who works for Green Mountain Grills, and we've been able to play with those quite a bit. And those are really, really awesome whenever you don't want to have to mess with a chimney. But for my grill back at home, it's a Weber, and that thing is like probably 8 years old at this point and rusted and all sorts. But it is great, and I can turn it into a pseudo water smoker and do a shoulder and maybe 3 racks of ribs on it. But to me, cool. the Weber is the best home grill out there, and it's very affordable. You could do all sorts of fancy things, but ultimately barbecue and grilling is about the fire. And if you don't know fire, it doesn't matter how many fancy things you buy. Right. It's not going to change your product. So as long as you learn fire, it's a practice thing. That's all it is.
Repetition. That's right.
Yep.
This podcast is brought to you by BBQData.com. BBQData.com is your one-stop shop for all of your barbecue competition data. Historical data, calls, wins, placements, everything under one roof. It's a great way not only to track yourself in the standings, but also to track how you improve your scores from year to year. Listeners of this podcast can receive 20% off of a new subscription to BBQData.com with the code PITPOD. That's one word, all capital letters, PITPOD, PITPOD. So check your team scores, check on others, and do it all on BBQData.com. What's a purchase of $100 or less that has most positively impacted your competition barbecue? Like a little tool or something that's...
A bed sheet.
A bed sheet.
A bed sheet. Yeah. So, we put a bed sheet on our pigs, and it creates the most beautiful mahogany color possible. And a lot of people cover pigs in aluminum foil if they want to like structurally do things, or they want to protect the skin, but the skin gets far too dark, especially in contrast with your black smoker. But we put a bed sheet, like $10 bed sheet from Walmart on our pigs at night. And it is a game changer. Been doing it a long time. I mean, it hasn't really changed the way that I cook because that's the only thing that I've done. But I have cooked one, and I let one of the shanks hang out accidentally, and that pig was like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful black leg. So yeah, a bed sheet is great. I much prefer that than wrapping it in foil because foil conducts heat, and so you might be overcooking your meat. Whereas a bed sheet just protects that beautiful skin and doesn't overcook anything.
Wow. Okay, you win for the best ever answer to that question. Bed sheet.
Yeah, a bed sheet. It works.
I'm going to ask this question even though I know the answer. How much do you depend on technology in your approach?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't believe in meat thermometers. So there's not really any technology for me.
I knew that was the answer.
Old school. It bothers me so much whenever, oh my God. You know what? My technology is an alarm clock on my phone. If anything, that's the only technology I use. But when I do overnights, the most annoying thing in the world is my neighbors using those stupid gurus and they just beep and beep and beep. And the guys are too drunk to get up and shut their shit off. So it's just constantly going off. And it's like, dude, just know just set it up. You know how to make a fire. Why does this have to tell you? Get up. Just wake up and feed it. It's not hard. But yeah.
We had a funny experience in Memphis because we were doing something and somebody was like, well, we need to make sure that it's only in there for 4 minutes. So one of the guys went, hey Siri, set a timer for 4 minutes. And all the Food Network people were like, wow. And we were all like, you guys don't do that? Like, that's the best use for your phone ever. Like, okay, I'm setting sauce. I'm going to leave it in there for 5 minutes. I could tell my phone to do that. Yeah. And then, and they were all just good. Wow.
Because if you walk off, you have your phone in your pocket. You don't have that stupid little timer that's 10 feet away from you that you can't hear because we've got this piggy pageant happening right now. Like, no, you're good.
I thought for sure they were going to make me do that. I'm so glad I didn't have to.
Dude, that was rough.
Yeah.
It was so rough. I was just, we have a toolbox in this front of our trailer, and none of them have rhythm. Like, none of the participants have rhythm. And my first nickname before even Duchess was Dancer. I studied dance in high school and college. And so I got up there and just started dancing. And then, like, people would watch them and then just slowly start looking. Like, oh, you want to be a backup dancer? No, baby. I'm the main show.
Right. No, don't use the word backup. No.
I think you would have been great, though. You should do it.
I don't know.
At least it's not the sauce wrestling.
Yeah,
that was some bullshit.
Well, and I was talking to Big Game about that, and they're like, the guy that wins this every year used to be a UFC fighter or something. Like,
yeah, don't do it.
You don't want any part of this. And then I saw the guy, and I'm like, nope.
You don't want it. Plus, you want to stand the next day, and you've got shit to do all weekend. You're good.
And I don't like, being covered in barbecue sauce. Not appealing.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking of crevices, and nobody wants that. Yeah,
nobody wants that.
We're good.
We have, oh my gosh, like I've covered like half the things.
Oh, so sorry. I talk a lot.
No, that means that we can do a part 2 later in the year, which will be awesome. Whee. But I do need to ask you, do you have any habits or rituals or routines that you have to do at a contest? Any superstitions?
We always do a blind box beer. Whenever you got to get a fresh beer before you start blind box. I always time my walks to the judge's tent. I'm really glad we did it this year because we were so far away.
You guys are about the furthest away from turn-ins.
It took me, which I'm a very quick walker, it took me 5.5 minutes to get to the judge's tent, whereas the average is about 1.5 minutes. So that was interesting. Always do that. And then whenever you're making your blind boxes, wrap the edges in foil.
Yeah.
And then you can pull them out. Mm-hmm.
Super important. Save yourself some cleanup time.
Yeah. But always have a blind box beer. Always.
You listen to music while you cook?
No, not really. I have what I call music Tourette's, and a lot of my teammates do. We'll just start breaking out into song halfway through anything. So whenever we're prepping a hog, we'll probably go through like 3 different songs. We'll never finish them. It's just something that we do. Yeah. Usually we're just bitching at each other. Well, no, we're bitching at my dad. Or just laughing. And, we have a saying, if Brian ain't bitching, it ain't barbecue. My dad is Brian. Or beef. We really don't listen to music just because there's always other people are playing music. So usually I'm dancing, while injecting a pig or, I don't know. I'm just always if I'm having a bad time, it's probably not going to be a good weekend. So that's my ritual, is to have a good time.
That's awesome.
Get it?
See, I said set a timer, and she set a timer.
Look at that.
And I even had it. I even had it on Do Not Disturb, and she still did it. All right, let's hit these. We still have a bunch to talk about, but we're going to have a part 2 later in the year.
Okay, sounds good.
Maybe after the Oktoberfest thing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool to catch back up after that.
Yeah.
Let's do the rapid fire questions though, because these are my favorite.
I'm here.
All right.
I'm ready.
What do you see about barbecue on social media that upsets or bothers you?
I would say the amount of gas grills. Hate that. I hate it. I hate it so much. That. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not barbecue. Oh, and encouraging the use of liquid smoke. Hate it. Don't do it.
Not necessary. I agree. Mm-hmm. What is one of your favorite pre, during, or post-competition meals?
Oh my God. Always Chinese food. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Chinese food, noodles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chinese.
Amazing. I made a Korean noodle dish last night for dinner.
Mama Fuku.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh good.
Yeah, stop it. Now you're now you're playing with my emotions. What is your favorite present that you like to give to people?
Oh, wine. Wine, or I make them a meal that they don't have to think about.
That's awesome. Yeah. Last question. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything, getting a message out to millions or billions, what would it say and why?
It would say, live a great story. That was great. Gary Roark's motto. And Gary Roark, again, is the founder of Ubon. And it is true. It will always be true. And living a great story means to live your life in a way that makes others' lives easier and better and happier. Because when you're doing that, you are living a happy, greater life yourself.
Wow. This has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for taking the time. Where can people find you and find Ubon's online?
I gotcha. Yeah. So I am BBQ Duchess on Instagram and probably on Facebook. Yeah. I don't do TikTok. I'm just not that girl. And then Ubon's is Ubon's BBQ, and it's UBONS. And we are ubonsbbq.com online. Yeah.
And you mentioned the Bloody Mary mix. I use that in my shrimp and grits. And
I like your style, you little Creole man. I got you.
It is fantastic, and it's always a crowd pleaser. Mm-hmm. But
oh yeah,
I just want to thank you again, and I'm so glad that you said hi to me whenever I met you at Turkey Turning.
Yeah, of course. Again, barbecue is so fun. And you always meet all sorts of characters, some fun, some not so fun. But life has a way of bringing happy people and fun people together. So you just continually growing the family, baby.
Well, great, and I look forward to catching up with you later this fall and see where your travels take you.
Yeah. Well, you be safe, you carny. We're gonna keep this trail going.
Absolutely.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it out with all your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel as well. Tune in next week for another great episode of Pitmaster. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved.
Old Virginia Smoke.